soon our willing witness comes down the street. And now it's no wonder that CNN and Fox broke into their live coverage at exactly the same time for exactly the same interview. And it didn't matter who they gave courtesy to, whether it was WNYW or WABC, because they knew what would happen in this interview, because it wasn't a willing witness, it was another cartoon figure. And perhaps we should have noticed it when the light was coming from the left to shine on her face and body, but the light was coming from the right to shine on the building right behind her, but it was her hands that gave her away. In the original interview, I only captured her hands at the very end of the interview, and they were very suspicious when you actually looked at it. In the beginning, it was just a fuzz. And then it was a very straight finger. Try doing that sometime with no knuckles, completely straight, and then immediately after that it turns to complete fuzz again. And it was very hard to capture this image. Now let's look at all of the hand shots that I was able to capture on the best available video that I could find, the official one on myfoxnewyork.com. Our willing witness comes in from the right with her left hand down at her side with her hand below the camera angle. She puts her left hand on the screen very briefly 2 different times. Do you notice what's similar about both of them? The first time she has a thumb and 3 fingers. The second time she has a thumb and 3 fingers. Where did her 4th finger go? Isn't that unlikely that that would actually happen? And isn't it really hard to hold your hand that way? Other times her hand was just a blur, and I could capture the same blur several times, and it looked like I could see things behind the blur. The blur does end one time when she moves her left hand through her hair, but it's actually not through her hair because her hand moves and her hair moves, but they don't seem to be in between each other at all. And then it goes away, and most of the time all you get is a hand in the air, or maybe a thumb on the edge of the screen, or a couple of hand fingers on the screen just for a second, right on the edge, and then a hand with no fingers, hand with fingers, hand with a really straight, bright finger, and then a blur with no fingers at all. Maybe Fox was just trying to keep this cartoon family rated. So it may have just been a strange coincidence that Fox 5 News went from Babyface in Washington, D.C. to an interview in New York City with a baby with no face. But this wasn't the only evidence of lies on live TV, because 4 minutes later, this view of live Fox 5 News shows up, and then it gets overridden by another live overlay. At first, the new logo looks like a big improvement because Fox 5 News in Washington now isn't just live, it's live New York City World Trade Center. But notice what else happens. We also have that orange box in the lower left, and 4 minutes later it gets in the way of the first flame of the World Trade Center, and we hear our witnesses talking before we can see flames.
The picture from our chopper now arriving at the scene. Jim Friedel in Hoboken said it appeared to bank sharply and smash directly, perhaps purposefully, into, oh my goodness.
Oh God.
Those words came before the flames were visible, and the scene shifted very quickly just as 9:02 became 9:03, and then by 9:05 the logo had disappeared and the just old plain old live was the logo on Fox News 5. But it turns out there actually was a live helicopter high five on WNYW on Good Day, September 11th, 2001 at 9:02. But look what happens at 9:03. What looks like a plane goes into the building, and what looks like the nose of the plane comes out of the building. The nose seemed to be followed by some flame, And then there's some wiggly lines up toward the top. It's not really a black line, but it does look like interference. And then right after that, the scene goes black. And then it comes on again with flame coming out through the tower. The protruding nose had become a big topic on some 9/11 websites, since the official story says that the plane stayed inside the buildings. So when I came to the National Archives in 2010, I came upon a very different view that didn't have a helicopter view, that had something down in the lower left to hide the flames, and voices were heard before the flames were seen. This explains why the view in 2010 went from live Fox 5 News at 8:58 to the elaborate scene that we saw that covered up the flames, and then back in 9:05 again, it was back to plain old 5, live. How could this happen if it was live television? The elaborate logo seems to have been patched into the original live logo so that the protruding nose wouldn't show up on the National Archives in 2010. The close-up view in 2010 on Fox 5 News shifts very quickly in 3 seconds to a very distant view. This is very reminiscent of what happened to CBS News Live when it shifted from a very close view that was brown to a very distant view that was blue. A few seconds later, CBS News Live coverage shifted to a distant view with the smoke going to the left, at about the same time that ABC News shifted to a distant view with the smoke going to the left and straight up. Is this the same fire? But NBC had the best of both worlds. It started out with a long view and then just accidentally captured this black dot that came right up to the corner of the World Trade Center, and then they got the top view with the flame coming out unexpectedly, and then they shifted back to the long view with the flame coming out of the tower. But before the same scene can be replayed, there are lots of horizontal white lines that look like overlays until the flame can come through without the dramatic shift to the top view in between. But at 8:48, CNN wasn't interested in replays because they could tell their viewers about the past and they could tell their viewers about the future because they were in control of the present. Then they broke into courtesy WNYW to watch the interview with the willing witness with the long, shiny finger. And then they broke into courtesy WABC so that they can listen to live on the phone Winston Mitchell, who was an eyewitness. And 9 seconds before the event supposedly happened, he got a better view of a plane going behind the World Trade Center. And then we had a dramatic view at the top, and then we had some lines, and then we had that vision of black and horizontal lines that looks like the smoke right at the top of the towers. And then we come with the horizontal line that looks like the overlay, and then we go back to the top scene, and then we go back to the view of the tower with the flames coming out. But wait a minute, it was live Newscopter 7 before the plane went behind the tower, and now it's just plain live after it comes out. Is this live television? Maybe we should ask Diane Sawyer and Charlie Gibson with the script in front of them as they wait for their breaking news, because they had a yellow and black logo on their screen until 9:02, and then at 9:02 they got the red and blue ABC News Live coverage with the dark blue over the lower left. And then very soon we came upon the black line that started this whole inquiry, where the towers were on top of each other, and then the top tower changed completely, and there was movement above and below the black line, until eventually we went back and saw the replay of the plane going in the towers.